Most people imagine evil as big, gunfire ripping through the air, screams, pandemonium. But sometimes it's not. It's nearly courteous. A breath of breeze, the creak of rope, a single man swaying in the desert heat, feet dangling inches above the ground. Jack Coburn wasn't a man who shook easily. 43 years of age, 2 tours in combat, and more graves dug for buddies than he wanted to remember. He rode west to vanish, to allow the world to forget him. Purchased a neglected ranch for $1 on the dot, unclaimed property the county had lost interest in. It lay just outside of Tombstone, Arizona, where the sun seared the earth to bone and neighbors kept to themselves. Jack had anticipated broken fences, perhaps a couple of snakes. What he hadn't anticipated was her, swaying just beyond his front gate. The barn in her back was a crumpled shell. Weeds grew tall and brittle. Her body danced with the wind, her slow swing, like a sad little ghost. Brown hair all matted, skin so pale, a broken chair at her feet, and nailed up for all to see, a burned plank with black words seared into it. Traitor. Justice served. Jack was familiar with death. He'd caught whiffs of it before. But something in his stomach churned because she wasn't dead. She was warm, still breathing barely. In an instant, he released the reins, pulled out his knife, and cut her down. Her body fell light as tinder. He picked up her chin, put his ear to her lips, and shared his breath. 1 minute, 2. Then, she coughed, gasped, and her eyes flickered open. She didn't scream or weep, just looked at him like she'd either seen a ghost or become one. Her name was Claire Whitman, age 24, the sole survivor of a family the town thought had disappeared 3 years before. But now Jack knew better. Whatever he'd purchased for that single dollar wasn't real estate. It was a hurt, and it just spilled all over his boots. Claire hardly said a word that first hour. She sat on the porch, knees folded up, drinking water as though it would vanish. Jack wrapped her neck in an old scarf and held his questions in. He knew that lost in the distance look, the sort fixed on something only she could see. Somewhere along the line, silence became too heavy. Jack rested against a post and told her, "You always make that kind of first impression? Or is today special?" She offered the smallest smile. And then she spoke. Her family owned this ranch for years. But her father was not a rancher, he was a geologist. A man who drilled holes in the ground, took cryptic notes no one else could decipher. Years before, he struck something large. Not gold, not oil, water. Deep, pure, and enough to sustain the valley for 10 summers. They hid it because out here you don't flaunt gold in the desert. But secrets don't stay buried. A man named Maddox, owner of half the saloons in town, found out. He wanted the other half. Water made land priceless, and priceless made people ruthless. He offered to buy them out. Claire's father refused. Soon enough, the well gave way. Her dad was killed in that accident. People said it was bad luck, but Claire insists she saw boot prints where they didn't belong, and beams that weren't damaged. They were cut. Then the land was sold. Perfect legal documents. Signatures. Only one problem, Claire never signed a damn thing. They drove her off the ranch. She ran, hid, waited. Maddox never actually put the property on record. Too afraid of asking questions, so it remained dormant, cursed, until Jack arrived. He didn't know the story, just saw a lonely plot no one wanted and bought it cheap, planning to live quiet. But instead, he'd stepped into a war. Claire had returned for a purpose. She possessed something Maddox did not, a map. Not squiggles and dots, but her father's complete geological survey. A schematic of the water under the earth. And she'd tucked it away in a place of safety. That's why they'd attempted to string her up. Jack stood transfixed, his gaze wandering out to the hills. What he saw before him now was not land. It was a fuse ready to be ignited. And then there was the sound. Hooves, slow, steady, not urgent, but not welcome either. Jack emerged from the porch, eyes squinting down the trail. A red dust cloud curled in the distance. 3 riders, no wagons, no saddlebags, just men riding hard. Claire didn't say a word, but Jack felt the tension in her shoulders, the stiffening of a deer that knows the rifle's already locked. The front rider had on a black coat, cleaner than any ranch hand's. His hat brim was low over his eyes, casting a shadow. The ones flanking him rode quietly, their hands resting close to their gun holsters like second nature. They reined in 10 paces from the porch. The front man didn't even get off. "You the new owner?" he said, as dry as cracked wood. Jack nodded once. "That's right. Bought it for $1, did ya?" the man said, his smile twisting like a waiting rattlesnake. "Heard this property came with issues." Jack did not smile, did not blink. "So far? Weeds, broken fences, and a girl you attempted to hang." The man's eyes flickered to Claire. "She don't belong here." "Neither do you," Jack said. Silence pulled taut between them. One of the riders to either side shifted in his saddle, leather creaking against the heat. The sun bore down, hot and unblinking. At last the point man leaned forward. "This ground's part of something larger now," he said, "and people who stand in its way generally end up underneath it." Jack stepped off the porch, slow and deliberate. He did not reach for his gun, just met the man dead center of the eyes. "Calm as a Sunday morning," he said. "Then I reckon you'd best start digging." The riders gazed for a heartbeat, then set their horses in motion without another sound. They said no goodbye. They didn't need to. As they rode away from the heat, Jack let out a breath. "They'll be back," Claire whispered. "I know," Jack replied. "And next time they won't be alone." The wind rustled the parched grass. The silence was different now. Not so peaceful, more like the time that the sky turns yellow and the air has a metallic taste of lightning. Claire acted quickly. She knelt beside the ancient stove, lifted a loose floorboard, and pulled out a small wooden box covered with cloth. Her hands shook lightly. Inside was the map. She unrolled it slowly. Paper yellowed, edges sharp, the lines drawn by hand, notes written in neat, stubborn handwriting. The sort of writing created by a man who loved his job. "This vein cuts directly across the North Ridge," she said in a low voice. "My father worked for 10 years charting it." Jack nodded. "And people will kill to get it." She remained silent. He refolded the map close, laid it down, and filled 2 coffee cups. Sitting across from her, he asked, "You certain no one else is aware of this?" Claire hesitated. "I didn't think so." That's when they heard it. A knock, gently, not on the front door, at the back. Jack crept slowly, gun hand on his revolver. Looking through a gap in the curtain, he saw a middle-aged man in dusty clothing. Something about him caught Jack's attention. Claire crept behind him, catching her breath. "Pete," she breathed. "He used to work for my father. Went missing when the well blew in." The man knocked again, in a low voice. "I ain't come to steal. I just want to speak. And I know where that vein leads. You need me, Jack. More than you can understand." The eyes of Jack locked with Claire's. "Out here, you never knew friend from enemy. And sometimes even the devil knocked courteous." Pete hadn't gotten beyond his sentence when the rumble came. A rushing of hoofbeats. Numerous. Rapid. Too near. Jack acted on reflex, throwing the map to Claire. "Hide it. Now." Pete dissolved into the darkness as the front gate swung open. Dust burst aloft. 8 riders this time, all of them armed. And at the center, like a vulture over carrion, rode Harper, Maddox's man. Face like stone. Smile like sin. He scanned the property with slow, greedy eyes. Finally, he spoke. "We came for the map and the girl. If you're thinking of playing hero, you'd better be ready to die for dirt." Jack didn't flinch. "Some land ain't dirt," he said. "Some land is memory. Blood promise." But even Jack couldn't know. What happened next would change everything. Harper moved first. Not fast enough. The first one was from Pete. Clean, crisp. The second from Jack. Then the air exploded. Gunfire bellowed, dry earth erupting with each impact. Claire dodged behind the stove. Pete was hit in the arm but continued firing. Jack's coat ripped as a round skimmed his side, but he did not halt. Then nothing. Dust. blood, and Harper face down in the dirt. Pete was white, gasping for air. Claire trembled as Jack stood beside the very porch post where this had all started. 3 days went by and the sheriff arrived. He took statements. He took bodies. He swore Maddox would pay for each one of those counterfeit documents and each ounce of bloodshed. Jack stayed. He repaired the fence, shored up the roof, drilled a new well. Claire stayed too. Not because she lacked any place else to be, but because some land should be stood upon, bellowed for, loved. Perhaps that's what the real truth about the West is. It ain't about the quickest draw or the biggest wallet. It's about keeping your word. So if this tale gave you something, a memory, a feeling, a spark, click the like button, subscribe, and join us for more. Now let me ask you, ever stood up for what was right when everyone else wouldn't? Something or someone you die fighting for, even if it took everything? Because out here, sometimes what we fight for isn't just territory or righteousness